what I want to ask you is, you speak of the warrior principle. How does a school district determine a good principal for the urban school setting?
Well, I think that a principal, number one, has to have a certain background. They needed to have spent a certain amount of time in schools, maybe in the classroom, as a school psychologist, as some school level position, teaching or otherwise, where they spent a significant time around students, urban school students. And when I say urban school students, I'm talking about students that come from poverty or low socioeconomic status. So, and from there, they go up the chain with some other type of leadership position where they've been a department chair, they've been a dean of students or something along those lines. And then you make the transition to assistant principal to principal. And so having that, number one, that background experience and education combined with a certain level of empathy and understanding for that particular population. And that doesn't come naturally. I think it comes naturally for administrators like me because I come from the urban school setting. All right. Many of the students that I work with over the course of my career, I've actually sat in those seats. I've been through some of the same struggles and plight that they've been through, but that's not the case for most administrators. So it'll have to be something that's come from the top, you know, the superintendent, his or her cabinet, and other administrators to basically provide professional development and for those particular principals, so they have that understanding of the population that they're dealing with and know how to connect and serve them in the proper way.
And welcome back to WBGR, and you're listening to Carter's Counsel, and we're having a discussion with Dr. Yisrael about the warrior principle, and he has wrote this book regarding about what it takes to be an effective principal in an urban school district. So, Dr. Yisrael, we during the break we were talking about hiring and identifying these warrior principals.
Right.
And we were talking about, the question I want to ask you is, a school system as large as Prince George's, a school system as large as DC, large as Baltimore City, which are all urban school districts, do we have enough qualified people?
Do we have enough?
Do we have the highly skilled principal
Right.
that you speak of to fill every school?
Well, my immediate answer would be no. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because, number one, coming out of graduate school, you don't have the proper information to be an effective principal in an urban school, because they don't talk about the effects of poverty that permeates the entire fabric of the school. Okay, you don't find those things out until you actually get there. They don't talk about the tension between the teacher union and the school administration, the superintendent's cabinet. You don't learn about those things until you actually get on the job. It's a host of other things that you're not exposed to when you're coming out of graduate school with your school leadership degree and your certification. The next thing is, a lot of times urban school districts don't do a good job at building the proper pipelines from the universities or other institutions that will funnel into the principalship. A lot of times districts, they just making decisions based on nepotism, who you know, and so on and so forth. And I get it, because sometimes in a position will open up and you'll get 300 applicants for one vacant principalship, and so it's hard to go through 300 applications. So what a lot of school districts default to is they'll go through their cabinet or people who they're close to and say, hey, do you know somebody? And a lot of times you might know a person and you might think they're good because you connect with them on certain levels, but they may not be skillful enough to lead an urban public school. And I think those are the things that a lot of urban school districts are facing right now. And that's the reason why I say no, that we don't have enough qualified and capable people in urban schools.
what I think, and you can push back on me, I think the same qualifications in the Warrior Principal are virtually the same qualifications needed for the urban superintendent at a larger scale. What do you think?
I would agree with you. The only thing that I would add to it and let the viewers know is that the superintendency is a very, very political position. Okay, the principalship is political, but not as political as the superintendency. And so, when you talk about selecting the right superintendent, a lot of times the right superintendent isn't the person that's selected. Is the most political. All right. And the person who is willing to get in and to be more politically astute on all fronts. But if you're really trying to change a school district around, you will need a superintendent to, number one, have all of the criteria in terms of experience and education, of course. But that superintendent will have to have had significant amount of time and experience at various levels leading in an urban school district, and also to be able to take that experience and that knowledge and that education and be able to put in processes in place and also hire the right individuals and put those in the right place to facilitate the programs and to execute the initiatives and also to apply the resources in a proper way so that the school district will be able to move forward. And a lot of times those particular gaps appear in urban school districts, and those positions aren't filled and the resources aren't allocated, is because, number one, when you start with the superintendent, it's usually a very political position, and it's not necessarily a position that people make with, I wouldn't say all the time, but many times with the entire school district in mind. Is more so about the politics.
Dr. King has a question.
Dr. Ezra, let me ask a quick question. What are two high leverage strategies or skill sets that the Warrior Principal will need to lead an urban school?
Two skill sets?
High leverage.
High leverage.
High leverage. What skills can an urban principal bring to the table to get that kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak?
Okay. You would need to be, number one, very instructionally sound. All right, because and a principal is a teacher of teachers. So if you're not able to model quality instruction yourself and know the nuances of it, it's going to be hard for you to improve instruction in that particular way. And also another essential skill or characteristic is you have to be an effective communicator. You have to be able to communicate with different stakeholder groups. You can, from the parents to the custodians to people in the community to, teachers, you name it. You have to be able to jump in and outside of these different spheres and be able to communicate with different people effectively. And in your communication, you have to be able to listen and also be able to apply what you hear in the right context. So I would say those are like two major skills that the Warrior Principal has, combined with an unrelenting desire to get the best results and never being satisfied with mediocrity and going for the status quo just because this is tradition or this is because we've always done it this way.
Right.
You have to be able to push forward and move beyond the circumstances. Yes, we know that these students come from poverty and low socioeconomic status. We know they come from single mothers. We know they live in group homes and grandmothers and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that you know this, what's next? What are you going to do to, you still got to educate these students.
Right.
What are you going to do to help boost student achievement? What are you going to do to make the school culture positive? What are you going to do to build connectedness and close the distance between the school and the community where students live?
And one.
Yes, you can find the book everywhere education books are sold, but the fastest way is to go to Amazon, or you can visit my personal website, which is EPBSconsultants.com. That's EPBSconsultants.com.
And you've been listening to Carter's Counsel, and we would like to thank Dr. Israel for his time. Would you stick? Always you make it. Oh, yeah. And welcome back to WBGR Carter's Counsel. And you just finished having a thoughtful discussion with Dr. Israel about the Warrior Principal And once again, if you would like to go onto his website, we're going to come back to Dr. Israel for final thoughts, and he can tell you once again, just in case you weren't able to get your pen or pencil to write the information down about the Warrior Principle and where you could find it. So we're going to shift to a frequent visit.
Again, you can find the book, The Warrior Principle, on Amazon.com, or my personal website, Educational Practitioners for Better Schools, which is EPBSconsultants.com.